Welcome into another exciting edition of the Figure Guys podcast. Each week, we sit down with the world's best figure customizers and figure collectors. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy another exciting edition of the Figure Guys. And remember, folks, playing and talking about your wrestling figures has never been this much fun. Welcome into another exciting edition of the Figure Guys podcast. We are on episode number 10. Of course, I am David Fine. The man to my left is Zaash, not Zaash. It's Zaash. The man below him, I want to welcome back into the program. He, of course, unfortunately missed last week's great edition of the program, the great Brutus Valentine, and the man below me, the man who has to scream tonight because he is the apprentice. We took away his microphone because, well, we just can do that. The great voice of our generation, Tyler Peters. Man, Zaash, we have a exciting show tonight. And, of course, you see in my the monitor behind me, Customania is coming soon and release the official Greenville He put together a logo for the contest. Greenville, he's of course coming up with a Hasbook that's coming up soon. We're going to be talking about that in the program tonight. It's going to be amazing, but tonight is an amazing show. Do you want to introduce our very special guest? I mean, he's a man who doesn't come on many shows, so we should, feel honored and privileged that. And folks, we want you to interact. This is kind of like a teaching session tonight. Zaash was saying that we want the folks listening and watching to message us and ask us questions for the ultimate customizer. Do you want to introduce who our very special guest on the program is tonight?
Looks like I'm in the hot seat here, David. What am I, the leader now? Have you been demoted? Nope. Oh, I shouldn't have opened my big mouth. There we go.
Number 4. Hey, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble now. Yeah. Don't ever put me up top.
I'm not even going to touch that, Tyler. You don't like to be on top, but that's beside the point. Let's go on with the program.
No one likes Tyler on top, believe me. All right. Look, guys, this is welcome everybody to the Figure Guys. This is the most anticipated podcast we've done to date. It's probably, well, I won't say probably, it's definitely the biggest name in LJ and Customs. We're very lucky he's coming on our show today. So our guest today, let's welcome Joe Gaddor.
Oh, Joe Gaddor.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
How you
Joe,
doing?
how are you, buddy?
I'm good, thanks. You?
Good, mate. We're expecting a lot of questions from our viewers today. We're already getting people excited, making comments. I've already raised my voice way too loud for an introduction, but that's a bit of excitement on my behalf, mate. But thanks for coming on the show.
All right, thanks for having me.
No problem, mate. Look, I'd say most or everybody in the LJN community would have heard your name at the very least, and all the customizers would know of you. You're probably considered the Michael Jordan of customs. So it's good having the opportunity to have you on the show. And I want to just second what David just said. Anyone who's got any messages, please ask, because Joe's come on here. He's willing to talk about anything to do with painting, and he's probably got the smoothest paint in the business. So if you've got any questions about that or putty sculpting, please ask him. But my first question for you, Joe, today would be, how do you get your paint so smooth on your figures?
I think a lot of it's prep work. I take all my figures, I strip them down, I acetone them, I clean all the dirt off them, and then I prime them. Whether it's rubber, I'm going to prime with Liquitex, or if it's resin, I'm going to spray prime it. And then your skin tone. I do my skin tones first because you don't want any streaks in your skin tone. And you're going to get maybe 10 coats, maybe even more of skin tone. It's all thin, really thin paint. So, and I've tried all sorts of different kinds of paints. I've used the Walmart brand. I usually mix my own skin tones. So I'm using the red, the yellows, the blues, and then I'm maybe adding some brown or blue or whatever to darken it up. But it's one of those things that you can't hurry. It's like a coat of paint, and then it sits for a few hours, and it's a coat of paint, then it sits for more. And then it all paint figures. It'll take days to get the skin tone before I cut everything else in. So I mean,
you must seal that skin tone after you do it, because anything like me, you'll get, once you finish the skin tone, you start painting the trunks or the top or the hair, you'll find little bits of that paint go on your finger and go onto your skin tone, and it's cringeworthy, mate, if you haven't sealed it right, and then you can easily wipe it off.
No, I don't. So usually what I'll do is I'll do my skin tone first, just because I want that to be nice and smooth. If I got streaks on my tights, I'm not too worried about that. They're tights. But I'll do all my skin tone, and then if I have like a light color, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna do a base coat of gray. I'm gonna do a base coat of white. I'm sloppy with my skin tone, so it goes all over. So once it goes all over and I'm good with what I have for skin tone, I'm cutting it back in with gray, or I'm cutting it back in with white. And then after I'm all done, then I go back through. I must go back through, I don't know, 10, 12 times, cutting skin tone back in, then the color back in with the skin tone. So, I mean, it's a long process if you want it to get nice straight lines.
Yeah, someone just said it must be a labor of love, and I'm telling you, it so is, isn't it, Joe?
It is, and it's also like it'll make you go crazy too at sometimes. You'll sit up at night and you'll start painting, and it gets so late, and you finally got to put it away, and you're like, you know what, I'm done. I can't do any more tonight, and you give it a break, and then you go at it the next day. But yeah, it's fun. I hate painting, but it's fun when you see the finished product. Like you see the figure, and then you paint it, and you really appreciate it.
Definitely.
I mean, Tyler, I know you've done your due diligence, your research. I mean, I consider you the journalist of, at least of me, of myself, between us, you're the journalist. I know you had some amazing questions that you wanted to ask Joe tonight.
Yeah, Joe, I wanted to ask you, what got you into wanting to do LJN Customs, making them? Was there somebody in your family or just an influence like that made you have this passion to do this as a hobby? I mean, I think it's awesome. I think a lot of us would love to know that story.
So growing up, my mom was always artistic as far as like doing arts and crafts or whatever. So growing up, that was our background. And then I've always been the guy that kind of looks at junk and tries to figure out what I can make out of that junk. I've never been able to draw, never been able to paint. I got two twin brothers that are like amazing artists. I've never been able to be that good. So my son, I got two brothers that collect action figures, and I never did. So my brother Mike got to me. He says, "Hey, I want to start making these toys for my wrestling, because they do wrestling, and they do benefits and charities and everything for wrestling." And he's like, "I want to get some action figures made up of us guys and whatever." And I got no time for that crap, Mike. I don't want to get into that. So eventually he talked me into it. I started like everybody else. I got the powdered mix, tried to make my own molds, and that didn't work. And then I got into doing the silicone molds. I started making his figures. So one day Mike says to me, he's like, "Hey, check this figure out on eBay." It was a Jerry Monroe, Hulk Hogan. He's like, "This thing is awesome." So I'm like, "That is pretty cool." I was like, it's a custom. Like, who wants a custom, So we went back and forth. He ended up buying one. So he got the figure in. And I'm like, "That's pretty cool." And I saw, I was like, "Man, these things are selling for outrageous amounts of money on eBay." I'm like, "You know what? I'm going to give it a shot." So I made a Warrior that was kind of similar to something Jerry did. And I did a Hogan that was kind of similar to what Jerry did. And then after that, I started like swapping out parts and, changing arms, changing heads, and doing all this stuff. And then I started getting into the Dremel work, and then realizing how you can smooth with acetone and how you can Dremel it out and make it nice and smooth. So I would think that my brother Mike got me into it, and I guess my first inspiration was probably Jerry Monroe's his Warrior. I loved the Warrior he did. That was pretty awesome. So, and then my absolute favorite LJN I've ever seen was the B.D. Haynes Barbarian. That to me looked like that was fresh out of the package, and I thought that was the best thing. But I doesn't say it's Mike's fault.
No, that's awesome. And hey, kudos to you being a Cowboys fan. That's even better.
Yeah, upstate New York, there's very few Cowboys fans, but pretty much my whole family's Cowboys fans. So
that's a great family. Yeah.
Something just happened to Zaash's family there. They all over.
Well,
Yeah.
there was a
So-
little.
So do you mind if I ask you a few questions from a slightly different perspective?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
I was waiting for the question.
Oh, that was a question. Do you mind? Yeah. So in doing the research last year and the year before, and actually a couple of years back for the book, looking at the different customs, I sort of were just to myself classifying them in different styles, and I think all styles are absolutely worthy. But sometimes I was classifying customs by like B.D. Haynes and Nick Hales in my head as being like Galoob style customs in a way. Not so much B.D. Haynes, but more Nick Hales in that they had that really high facial definition. And with yours, looking at your images, to me it seemed like I could just open the blister pack and pulled yours out, and these were like production figures. They had that smooth to the finish like you would expect a kid to come out and see. Do you have that? Is that part of your dremeling of the figures and using the 8 or 9 coats? Do you aim for that smoothness, or is that just the way your hand applies?
It's both.
Yeah.
So the first Hogan I made, when I got done doing the arms, it looked like he had shoulder pads. So it pissed me off. So I let it set for a couple weeks. And then I got sick of it. I pulled the Dremel out. I just went at the shoulders, and I just started carving my own shoulders into that figure. And then I realized how much you can actually do with the Dremel.
Yeah.
So when I actually do a figure, like you'll see a lot of guys will do cut and they'll try to piece it they'll try to piece it together, neck to head or whatever.
Yeah.
Mine is pretty much rounded. I round it. If you think of how sheetrocking is done, how you have your beveled edges. I do all beveled edges. Like I blend it as best I can with my hands, and then the rest is hand sanding. And sometimes I'll throw a coat of paint on it just to see if I can see any imperfections. And if I see something, I go back at it and I'll either sand it again or I'll throw more epoxy on to blend it back in.
So it really sounds like quite a hands-on process with yours. And I've used that word hands before in talking about you too, because you can see if people want to have a think about clay is modeled, it's really looking at a handsy type of thing. And you can almost, you can disagree with this, could you almost close your eyes in some cases and actually feel around the figure and say, yeah, well, his chest is out or that sort of thing?
Yeah, for like the next, like if I change out arms or I change out heads or whatever, I usually I'll feel it with my finger, I'll wet it, and then I'll feel it with my finger, and I can feel like any imperfections as far as like I did a figure not that long ago, and I got done with it, and I finally saw like a part on his neck, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? How did I miss that?" But most people don't care. You know what I mean? To me, it's like, oh, man, I screwed that up. But mine is a perfection kind of a thing where I want it to be nice and smooth. I want everything to blend. I want it to look like they're not wearing shoulder pads. It's not got a big, huge neck. It blends in well with the neck. But that's me personally.
Zaash, you have any? I know you were. I mean, when you told me that you booked Joe on the show, I was like, I mean, this is amazing. I mean, this man is like. Some of the comments said, I mean, his LJNs are better than the regular LJNs. Do you have any more questions for him?
Yeah, of course. I've got a million questions to ask Joe, but I'm enjoying listening to him in depth talk about how he does things and his way of doing it. I can definitely relate to feeling around the neck and feeling imperfections and stuff like that. With me personally, Joe, I've got a sort of probably a different technique to what you do from the sounds of it, in the sense that I actually seal mine a number of times. I can relate to what you were saying earlier about using different products for rubber as you use for resin as well, like the hard figures and stuff. A lot of people don't like the resin figures, I was one of them early on, but I've become quite accustomed to resin in the later the past year mainly. In the sense that I can use products on resin that basically make it so much more smoother. Do you find the same thing?
Oh, absolutely. If you're gonna use clay, so I'll give you a simple example. So your rubber versus clay versus resin. So if you're piecing a rubber figure, resin head, and then the epoxy clay, they all dry differently. So you have to have some sort of primer on them that's equal. It's going to make everything feel right. And I have an old bulldog. This is my original bulldog. I molded it and I made copies of it before. I don't know if you can see the color difference. Can you guys see that color difference or no? On the chest?
I think so. I think I can,
right,
yeah.
See how the stomach looks different?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure.
And then on the back. So what I did with him, that was a Kempatera that I ended up, because I didn't know how to Dremel then, I cut everything out with a knife. Cut it out with a razor knife, and then I put all the epoxy in and then blended it and smoothed it, gave him abs and all that. Well, I never primed him. I didn't know you had to prime. So over time, the clay dries differently than the rubber. So now you have two different colors of skin tone. So yeah, it's to me, resin's a lot easier to work with because you can pretty much cover it with one. You spray it with regular spray primer, and then that works for everything. Whereas the rubber is a little bit different.
I had that same problem with mine going back a few years ago with a natural disasters I did. I did exactly the same as what you just said, and I had the same sort of color tone difference. Also I find with rubber figures, when people are specifically asking for a rubber figure custom and it's got the clay on it, I mean, it's got a resin head, it's got maybe a clay suit or a milliput suit, whatever you use, epoxy suit, and all these things. Well, it's half hard anyway. The only thing that might be flexible on it are the limbs, and if you puttied up a knee guard or something like that on it, and you go flexing the limbs anyway, you risk the chance of cracking your putty and stuff like that on it. So a lot of these guys, I think, that don't really realize that resin is probably the better way to go in the sense that it's not going to break as easy.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And everything is I guess it's equal, I would say. Like you said, you got this, like my King Kong or my Abdul, you look how much clay is on him. That's like a 50-pound figure right there. And you mold it, like you don't have to worry about that stuff chipping off. It's a solid piece. And you don't have to worry about the flexing. And if you want to do, problem with rubber is it's so hard to get the bubbles out of rubber. I made them thumb wrestlers, and I stopped making them because it was just a pain to. If I had any imperfections, then you got to mix the skin tone right. I mean, I bet you I got 10 of them thumb wrestlers sitting there that I don't want to mess with because I'm done with them. You know what I mean? It's like when people want them, it's like I just don't want to mess with them. But yeah, if you can make a nice rubber figure, very few air bubbles. I think Brian Foley does some pretty good.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Rubber, yeah.
I put mine in a vacuum chamber and I suck all the bubbles out of it. I do it all the right way. I'll pour it in and you can guarantee it'll always catch a few underneath the arms or in the lip or certain areas where if you were doing resin, you just wouldn't have these problems,
Right. Absolutely. I think it's just thicker. It doesn't have it's the viscosity is so messed up on it that it's so hard. You pour thin, you said vacuum chamber. I think originally they're made to be injection molded with high pressure. So, yeah. And then a lot of it has to do with your vents too. If your vents aren't good, you're going to have bubbles. But it's a pain in the ass. They're cool to look at and cool to play with, but they're a pain in the ass.
Yeah, 100%. Brutus, Tyler.
We have some.
David was going to go. Yep.
We have some great comments. We have, of course, the great Michael Weems from LJN Figures says, "Man, my Andre thumb is Joe's piece, and I love it." So it's like,
yeah. Look, I got these things laying around. I don't even want to paint them because I don't want to clean them up.
I'm sure you'll find a good home for them. So,
well, I'm sure I could. It's just I don't want to send them out with imperfections. I can't. I can't bring myself to do it.
Yeah, and then we got another comment from a Facebook user says resin is definitely better for overall durability. I mean, it seems to be that people, are agreeing that resin is definitely, the number one thing that you need to use. Yeah, I mean,
And there was. Oh, sorry, David. Yeah, there was also a comment from a fellow customizer, Kevin Swales, and he was asking Joe. It's back on. I noticed you make quite a few non-WWF customs. So he was wondering, are your favorite wrestlers from the territories?
Growing up, my favorite wrestler was the Warrior.
Yeah.
LOD. But I think I look back at the old storylines and I look at the old wrestlers and I'm like, man, this guy was pretty fucking cool. I'm gonna make him. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I just look at their character and I'm like, man, he just looked badass. You know, I'm gonna make him. Like I've got a handful of guys that I want to make that probably aren't that big of a deal to a lot of people, but you just look like Nick Bockwinkel. I just thought that was hilarious how he combed his hair over the top and he had the comb and he's sitting there in front of a mirror and he combed it. I was like, man, that's like my uncle. Got the belly, a little bit of a belly, hairy chest, and just slicking his hair back. So yeah, to me it was more about the image. Like, yeah, that's pretty badass, you know. But
yeah. I mean that gives me an idea for book 4. We've got to get through book 2 and 3 first, but 4 could be like it'll be once again totally dependent on the customizers. The greatest 100 from that era. So we're talking across all the territories. So we get Bruiser Brody and Bockwinkel from the AWA, you know, and a few of the out WWF characters, but when they weren't necessarily in the WWF.
Yeah, I mean, Phil has this other great question. It's kind of tied into the WWF. Are there any wrestlers who tried to create that you feel you just couldn't get right?
Not yet. I'll say not yet. I say not yet only because usually if I don't feel it, I won't make it. I was trying to make a Bret Hart for James Cooper a while back, and I started it. I started the clay work, and I just didn't feel like I wanted to finish it. So I sent him a message, say, hey, look, I'm probably not going to finish this figure. I got this figure. Do you want this one? I'll sell you this one. This is from my collection, whatever. And it still sits in my box. I just can't bring myself to work on it because I didn't think it up in my head, so it just didn't feel right. So that one will sit there and I probably won't touch that for a very long time. But
yeah,
so I would think that was a Bret Hart. He wanted me to make him a Bret Hart with the jacket, and I started doing it the way I thought it should look, and it just didn't feel right to me, so I just never finished it.
Yeah, I mean, I get this question a lot from people. I mean, did you see yourself? I mean, I'm not sure of your age. At this point in your life, did you see yourself creating custom wrestlers? I mean, maybe you collect them as a kid or growing up, but did you see yourself at this stage in life creating them and people loving your work? I mean, did you see that as a path that you were going to take, or is this something you just fell into?
Kind of just fell into it. I didn't own any toys probably. I guess toys. I said I didn't own any of my childhood toys probably 10 years ago. And then over the past, 10 years or whatever, I started getting into it deep and heavy with collecting with my son, collecting with my brothers. We bought our first tote of LJNs off a guy that was like right down the road. And we had like a draft. We laid them out on the floor. We each picked one of them. So he finished the collection before me. So it kind of soiled it for me, but so no, I never really saw it growing up. I didn't collect just one thing. I had pretty much like some of this, some of that, so I had pretty much a little bit of everything. So I didn't like have a complete collection of one thing. And that was the only thing I had as a child. Like our toy room right now, like I can't even walk in it because it's packed full of just stuff from my son and I, just wall to wall. So I pretty much collect everything 80s now.
I mean, that there's nothing wrong. I mean, 80s they were a good decade. We have Joey Palmier says, my wife calls Joe a real life elf. I'm not sure exactly what that means, and maybe I shouldn't have put that up, but it's it is what it is. But we have another question from a Facebook user. Hey, folks, if you're gonna send us questions, we'd love that. But if you click on the StreamYard link in whatever destination you're watching this live stream, and then your face can come up so we can see exactly who we're talking about. What is your most surprising outcome, and that came out much better than you were expecting?
probably, crazy as it is probably the Hasbro's I did. I think I mentioned it to you guys before. I made Hasbro's last year, and it was for a custom competition, and it was Halloween themed. So when I think of Halloween, most people were doing like Jason Voorhees and Leatherface, and I'm like, you know what? I'm thinking trick or treating. I'm thinking of wrestlers dressed up in Halloween costumes going trick or treating, and I made a couple of them. But I did this is actually before they came out with the WWE ones. But I actually made many faces of Macho Man and the Honky Tonk. And if inside of this, it's kind of crazy. I got everything to move using like earplugs from work, rubber bands, and like washers and bolts and everything. I got just pieces of everything just to make sure it would work. But these were probably the coolest things I think I made that I thought was pretty cool. Like I did the Rock as Michelangelo. I did Macho Man with his little Halloween mask. That's Chuck Norris. That's kind of hard to get on there, but Chuck Norris mask. But that was probably the coolest thing. I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I really like doing them.
Did you do Vince McMahon with the soul?
No, I did not. No, the other one I really like was the Giant Macho Man, where I did like a Beetlejuice head underneath the giant He-Man figure, and it was like a thing weighs a lot. So it's got the Beetlejuice head underneath.
Yeah,
and it moves, and then this pops out, and this is a Voltron. Well, I tried to incorporate as many toy lines as I could in that one figure, but I thought that was pretty cool.
It also does reference intrinsically the head shrinkers as well. So,
yeah,
yep.
I know you had, in talking before the show, you had brought up a Bret Hart that you had created. I mean, do you want to talk about that? I mean, that was an amazing Bret Hart, Owen Hart. That was an amazing Owen Hart that you created.
So it started out a while ago when I first started doing these customs on the groups. I did a Mr. Perfect, and then I made a mold of it. So I pretty much used anvil, and the arms were all chewed up. So I used Macho Man arms on the anvil, and then I changed his singlet a little bit, or his so it actually was up a little bit higher. And I popped the Mr. Perfect head on it. So I made a mold of it, and it pretty much works for a lot of different figures. So I wanted to make an Owen Hart in a blue blazer, and they could never find someone who had a good Owen Hart head. And then finally the Warsman came out with an Owen Hart, and I'm like, you know what, that's the best Owen Hart I've seen, and I'm gonna buy that off that guy. So I bought the Owen Hart head off of him, and I put it on the same exact body. And I said, well, if I'm gonna do an Owen Hart, I gotta do a blue blazer. So it's actually the same exact body style, but it's all made from the original figure of my Mr. Perfect. But yeah, that was my favorite. That was my favorite Owen Hart head. I couldn't make one until I found the right head. You know, that's what it is with a lot of the figures I make. Is I can't bring myself to make it unless I like the way the head looks, or if I'm gonna, you know, it's just got to be perfect for me.
Yeah, I mean, folks, you're doing great tonight. We asked for questions, and we are getting a ton of questions tonight. Another Facebook user asked, "What is something that you haven't done yet that you can't wait to do?"
Something that ain't been done yet. That's I think my biggest problem is I can't stick with one toy line. I keep bouncing around. Zaash did the bendy figure. I wanted to do a bendy figure so bad, and I just never had the time to even really research it or anything. And I was like, man, he nailed it. I'm done with that one now. So I'll try to find something that hasn't been done. I like making the LJNs. I like doing the Master of the Universe crossover to WWE's. I got a couple things I want to try that haven't been done yet, and we'll see where that goes. But that's all time, and we all know how that works.
Yeah, time gets away from me. The thing that I really want to talk about is your Halloween retro figures that you did last year. I know that's something that you're passionate about. Can you kind of talk about that and kind of discuss that to everyone watching?
So yeah, I mentioned it earlier. So yeah, it was came up with the competition. It was right around Halloween, and like I said, I think everybody else was doing like scary movie characters like Freddy Krueger or whatever. And my whole mindset was I wanted to do a trick or treater. And when I did The Rock, I actually used the Stone Cold Steve Austin. They came out with the retro figure. It's actually got turtle arms, turtle legs, got the turtle mask that goes on, and then the shell actually comes off. So it's just his body. And I actually even made him a little pumpkin so he can go pick up his candy with. His nunchucks are actually microphones because Rock liked his microphones. But so yeah, I did him, and then I was like, you know what? I know you guys all remember them Halloween costumes from the 80s, the ones that had no feet. So it's pretty much like half a costume, you know, with a string on the back. So I did Macho Man as Chuck Norris. Got his Chuck Norris mask.
Just hold it up a bit higher for us, Joe. We've got some guys that can't see it. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and actually,
it's awesome.
I can get the mask on in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did it with it's just like the old 80s costumes, you know, you slip on the thin plastic crappy costumes. And then this one was actually a Braun Strowman figure that I actually took the Master of the Universe many faces and took the torso off from him and then made the heads. I had to split the heads. I don't think I can do this really good. See if I can get it apart. I just kind of tacked it together.
Feel free to make another custom while we're watching. We can learn that way.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
I mean, we can
Yeah,
go on
that's
as
fine.
long as you want. I mean, if,
So, Joe,
could
while
be a-
you're doing
I
that,
don't know if you guys can see this or not, but that's the insides of it. Can you guys see that or no?
Yeah.
yeah.
So I pretty much there goes the head.
That's the honky.
Yeah, so like
Oh,
so
yeah,
like-
yeah. Honky and Savage, yeah. The faces.
yeah, so I mean
Yeah.
the reason why I was so proud of that is I actually got all the parts to move. I just didn't glue everything together.
Yeah.
I actually made it act like a regular Hasbro and everything still moves. So yeah, those were kind of cool because it makes you think, you know.
Now, Joe, we've got a question. Caleb Langford, another one of your peers, asked, how did you go in that Halloween Hasbro competition?
I got piss pounded. Yeah, so yeah, no, I got beat. I had all three figures and I posted my favorite one in front. And I don't know if it was the Macho Man. Yeah, no, I put the Rock in front of the three. I had a background like they were trick or treating on the street, and
Yeah.
I got piss pounded. It wasn't even quite. I got beat pretty bad. That's usually what most competitions. I get pounded out of the competition.
I mean,
Kiss
speaking
pounded.
of speaking of competitions, are you looking to enter the first ever the Figure Guys podcast presents LJ and Customanium?
Yeah, the problem is now I got like 30 figures I want to make because I don't know which ones to enter. And then you're like, well, which one do you enter first? Which one do you enter second? Which one do you enter third? But yeah, absolutely. I'll have something to put in.
Yeah, I mean, it'll
definitely be fun.
I mean, it's definitely going to be an amazing competition. I mean, folks, Joe's going to be in it. I mean, he's an amazing customizer. I mean, you need to enter it. I mean, Zaash, we haven't really talked about it, on air, but I mean, you want to kind of give some details, on the contest, and maybe if we're going to give details on when we're going to start, and all the rules and everything.
Yeah, sure. I'll give a quick rundown for those who haven't heard, but it does change in little areas here and there, but we're evolving with it. So, okay, so right now we've got the entries have to be in by midnight Sunday, the 27th of June. You need to put 3 figures in, and at the moment we were going to make it 3 rounds over 3 weeks. But we're looking to now shorten that to 2 weeks of competition because I feel like it'll turn a little stale if it's over 3 weeks. It's just a bit too long for everyone to stay into it. So I think 2 weeks is plenty for a competition to run. So it is 3 figures. And we'll be doing one figure at a time, probably over 3 to 4 days per figure. And no scores we'll be giving until the end. At the very end, we'll be counting up all the scores. All the votes will be going to Brutus Valentine. There will be a way of showing the votes at the end, but we want to keep all the voters anonymous. We want to keep all the customizers anonymous. Everything will be anonymous, and
except the winner.
Until the end, then we announce the winners. And
that's right.
I was having a chat to Brutus during the week, actually, and we're covering that there might be a few other prizes as well. Brutus, do you want to extend on that for me, mate?
Yeah, because LJN Customania 2021 is hopefully going to attract the best in the business, and also newcomers and people just having a go. It's people online will vote for the best customs they think, and that's up to them, and that's the idea of the competition. But from our point of view, from like a judge's point of view, we like to recognise different types of achievement based on certain styles. So, for instance, we were throwing around the idea of having like the best old school custom. So that's a custom that doesn't use any other imported parts or bits, just based on an LJN figure. Another one that I'm really interested in is the best characterization. So it may not be the best resolved custom in the end, but a guy might have caught a wrestler in a different pose or a different light or a different costume that we really haven't seen before. You know, a great characterization that comes from something. Also looking at potentially the best paint-only custom. So a custom that's had no sculpting to it, but it's purely done by the artist actually just using their paint skills to reinterpret that figure. And we're planning for a series of highly commended awards to recognise that these different styles that really should be encouraged as well. And, of course, celebrate what guys online as part of the community and girls think are their favourite customs, and that's the open competition for that sort of thing. So
these highly achieved awards are going to be judged by certain people on the panel, and the main awards, which will be first, second, and third, will be judged by public voting. So
that's right.
these what Brutus are talking about are just little extended awards for those that we think may be a bit of fun, you know. Then there might be a certificate with the custom on it or something like that. So these are just a few little fun awards that we're adding on top of it, just to maybe those who aren't really thinking they are a chance of getting a win over the likes of Joe Gaddor or something like that. Well, they've still got something that they might look forward to. They might receive, you know, one of the highly commended awards, which is still something to be very proud of, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, David, you were going to go?
Oh, no. I was just about to say something, but you finish up and then I'll...
Often in a lot of art competitions, especially art competitions that are publicly voted, they also award some judges awards based on certain styles, and that's what we're hoping to replicate a little bit here, recognizing that people come into it from different angles, and that there's a lot of different winners, but of course we have the overall winners as voted by the people, which is what we're all here about. So, and once again, as everyone said, doesn't matter what level of customization you're at, enter it. All the master customizers started somewhere, and a lot of people are too critical of their own work. Let the public decide. You might find that people receive your work much better than you're judging it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people have been asking me, Zaash, that LJN for Life, they're having an amazing, a phenomenal competition right now. People have been asking me, is it going to be head-to-head figures, or is it going to be like a voting system like they are doing currently?
No, it's all head-to-head with our competition. Basically, you put your custom in, the person with the most votes gets the win. It's quite simple. With round one, you'll put your first figure in, everyone can vote, and then votes will be kept under wraps. We don't want to unleash the votes as they're happening. We don't want anyone getting votes for catch-up or anything like that. The votes are going to be locked in. They're going to be kept secret until the end of the tournament, which we'll be having a podcast to announce all the results live at the very end of the competition. So we'll go from round 1 and say these were the figures, these were the votes. Round 2, these were the figures, these were the votes. Round 3, these are the figures, these are the votes, and then it'll be totaling at the end. And we're hoping to have a score on the screen as we're announcing it, so the scores are going up for each person and so on. Trying to make it semi-professional where we can, but Brutus will get that figured, I'm sure.
That's right. And for you guys in the States and in Canada listening in, I don't know if you've ever watched Eurovision, but perhaps we need to have a Eurovision-style scoring system. I'll leave that to you. Eurovision's very big here in Australia, or even in Eurovision. It's a song contest. I wanted to throw to Tyler. I was wondering if Joe said, Tyler, I'll make you any figure you want, right? What do you reckon?
I know what it is.
Sort of get him to go for.
No.
And don't say a David Fine figure either.
We spoke about this today, didn't we, Tyler? Go on.
Yeah, it's not actually wrestling. I talked to Zaash about this. Could Joe make a John Farnham? I mean, that's who I want to see. You're the voice.
Looks like he doesn't know John
Farnham.
He doesn't know. See, I threw him off. Yeah. Come on.
Fuck is John Farnham?
Yeah. See, I did that. No, I'll tell you. I'll be serious. Paul Bearer. Let's do Paul Bearer so he knows what we're talking about. But that's true. Hey, the other one was not off. I mean, I'm passionate. I want Sadie the cleaning lady.
Oh, Sadie. Gee, one of our cats is called Sadie. When Tyler was saying that, I was looking at Joe, and I was looking at Tyler and looking at Joe. I was thinking, what about? I mean, I know, Joe, you've made customs of people, but I was thinking Tyler and Paul Bearer. You could model Paul Bearer on Tyler, or Tyler on Paul Bearer. So that might be the next hybrid. People who look like certain wrestlers. So there's a couple guys who look a bit like King Kong Bundy, for instance, and sort of put that together. I don't know. I look like some jobber,
Yeah, he's hey, I didn't know Zaash had that, so that's all. But seriously, any of the territory guys you talked about Bockwinkel. To be serious, not to throw you off, Joe, about music because I threw the whole Farnham deal in there, but. Just seriously about wrestlers, and I know I'm getting off the rails. I can tell by his expression. I bring the much-needed lack of comedy. If that's my role. So.
Hey, getting back on a serious note with our amazing guest here, we have a question from our number one fan, Mexican Burt Reynolds. He wants to know, bless me with a Dusty Rhodes head. I'm your number one fan.
I'm not touching this one.
I'm not touching. Yeah, but on another serious question, Joe, this person loves your work.
That's
curious, what's the longest you spent on one figure?
Probably. It's hard to guess. I would say 6 months. I did the Andre. That was over 6 months doing that. That was King Kong Bundy. And that was all pieced together, changing the boots, changing the legs, blending the calves. That was actually a rubber figure. We talk about doing molds and resin figures, and it's easier sand, easier clay. That was a solid rubber figure. And I actually posted a picture of it. I think after the competition was over, I think I posted a picture of it to show like what it looked like as I made it. But that was probably one of the longer ones because it took a lot to blend the clay and everything. I still haven't got rid of that figure because I want to mold it before I get rid of it, just so I can make another one. Because I'll never make another one from scratch.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing. I mean, I saw on the website on the Facebook page. I mean, you make more than wrestling figures. I mean, are there any other lines, LJN and any other like Mattel or Galoob or any other type of action figures that you have in the works or that you have made in the past?
I'll say I've done pretty much the articulated ones. I've done Motu, Master of the Universe, Remco, Hasbro. I've done the giant Master of the Universe. I will say the guys that do them Mattel figures, they can have them. Them are crap. You gotta blend all. You gotta mess with the joints. You gotta tear the figures all apart, sand them down so they don't get any paint rub. Yeah, they can have them. But like Hasbro's are fun. Hasbro's are fun because you have a lot more parts to choose from. and you can tear it all apart. Remcos are fun because you can tear them all apart, paint them, then piece them all back together. But there's something about LJNs. They're just, if you've never done an LJN and then you start doing it, you start claying it, and you start seeing what everybody's doing, you realize there's a lot that goes into them. Whereas like those Mattels or fully articulated figures, those are a pain in the ass. I want nothing to do with them. But I'm just being honest, man. They're a bitch.
I mean, we do like honesty on the show and comedy as well from Tyler. But
well,
Tyler,
I try.
I mean, Tyler, I know you have a few more questions that you would like to ask our guests here on the program.
Yeah, and this will be a serious question, Joe. The Natural Butch Reed, take us through that process, because he's one of my favorites, man. We recently lost him not too long ago from the territory, still working in WWE. I mean, you've got the natural down pat, the resemblance. It's just incredible. I mean, how did you make him? I mean, as far as customizing, yeah.
As crazy as it sounds, most of these figures are made by accident. And when I say that, I'm looking like I'll say, all right, I want to make this guy, and I'll get the head the way I want it, and I'm like, all right, now I got to find a body. So like my Dino Bravo I made, I got a head off Warsman. He made a Dino Bravo head. And I don't know what I'm going to use for parts in this thing. So I had like a leftover Greg the Hammer chest. Like, who wants to use Greg the Hammer's upper body? His arms are gross. I'm not going to use that, right? So then I'm looking. I got Ken Patera's legs. So I'm like, well, they'll kind of match up. I'm like, I really don't like Cameron's fist. So I changed the fist around. And I changed the other arm around. And I'm like, there's my Dino Bravo. It's a lot of it's by accident. And you get to taking the parts and you just kind of sit there and piece them together. Like, all right, how is this going to work? How is this going to work together? Does this match up? And that's God's honest truth. Like, a lot of it is you're just piecing stuff together, trying to make it, you're throwing it on the wall, making it stick pretty much. And if it comes out, it looks good, you're great. If it comes out, it looks like crap, you're like, we'll put that in the drawer and not show anybody.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds the opposite to how I would put together a custom. I'd probably have Greg Valentine's face, Ken Patera's hair, King Kong Bundy's torso, and Elizabeth's legs. So,
what a combination!
Boom! I'll give up the comedy. So yes, yeah.
I mean,
leave it to Tyler.
I mean, he could use DeWart's custom Liz. If anybody's seen that on Facebook, he could use that for. I'm just,
he painted that. You realize he painted that, right?
I've got a serious question then.
Oh God,
Joe, do you have trouble letting them go?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's got to be. So I stopped doing commission work. When I first started out, I was getting hammered. A lot of people wanted commissions, and I'm like, yeah, I'll make this and I'll make that. And it got to the point where it wasn't fun anymore. So I'm like, you know what? I'm finishing up what I got, and I want to kind of make, what I want to make. And it's the same thing. Like, I make a figure. I made that Stone Cold. A gentleman had messaged me about a Stone Cold. And anybody knows my figures take forever to finish because I'll start them and months will go by and I'll get to work on them again. And I got a hold of the guy and said, hey, I said, do you still want this? And he's like, I really don't want it. I'm like, all right, no big deal. I wanted to keep it anyways because I thought it was pretty cool.
Yep.
So I kept it. And I held on to that for a while. And that was the figure I offered up to James Cooper. I'm like, you know what? I really like this figure. Maybe he's going to like it. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to finish with Bret Hart for him. So I'm like, look, this is one of mine. I'm going to offer you. If you want this in exchange, it's yours. But yeah, it's pretty much, it's got to be, and it's hard too, because you can make it again, but I'm not going to make it again. I don't want to make it. I've already made it. I've already showed it to everybody. Everybody kind of liked it. And I don't want to make it again. I want to go on to the next Stone Cold.
Yep.
Or whatever.
Okay. You're a designer. A designer, a maker, an artist, not a crafter who then just reproduces. And you do the heads.
So the thing with the heads was when I first started going out. So I'll go a backstory. So I made my first couple figures and I sold them on eBay. And my brother Mike says, you got to make. I can't remember who had me make. Let me make somebody. I can't even remember the guy. But I put it up on eBay, and Filiberto Torres bought it off me. And he was in the LJN group. He was in both groups.
Yeah.
And he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, you gotta come join these groups." So I'm like, "All right." So I joined up, and I started getting into these action figures. And so people were messaging me left and right. They wanted these figures. I was gonna I'm like, these are mine. I'm not giving any heads to anybody. These are just mine. And I got to the point. I'm like, man, like all these guys want these figures, and there's plenty enough customizers out there that are gonna make these things. So like Joseph Palmer is probably like my biggest customer. He's constantly messaging me wanting, he'll buy like 10 LOD heads or whatever, and then he'll make them up, turn them around, and get them out to the customers. But
yeah,
that was my thing. Is like I made these heads with plans on making these big lines of action figures, and I just can't do it. And I was like, all these guys like these figures. It's kind of a shame that these are just sitting here and no one's getting to appreciate them. So it's kind of like I hit a wall, and I'm like, you know what? I'll start passing them around, and people were buying them up.
Hey, Joe, question, mate. We've got your brothers coming on, Mike, Matt, and Justin, in the beginning of August. What can you tell us what we might be in store for on that show?
It might be kind of comical. I don't know if you've ever seen some of their videos, but so Mike and Matt are the twins. So they're pretty much the artist. Justin is pretty much the editor. He does all their videos and does all their filming and all that. So you're gonna have a show. I'm sure they're gonna make you laugh, and they're probably gonna do something silly and stupid. But you're gonna get you're kind of lucky they're not here right now, because our original plan was to have Justin stand over my shoulder as my bodyguard, but he just got back, so he didn't have a chance to come over. But yeah,
so out of all you boys, I'm guessing you're the more serious one. Is that right?
Well, no, I got a younger brother, Tom, who's kind of serious, but yeah, probably the more serious. I'm the oldest, so I kind of got to act like the adult.
That's a whole Survivor Series team there.
yeah. Well, yeah, you'll get a taste. You'll get a taste of them three when they come on. They're a riot.
And they do the buddies. Anything else?
He does buddies. Mike's done some action figure stuff, but he's so into the buddies right now. I don't think he has time for anything else. So you'll notice like Mike does more cartoony stuff. Matt does more like real life stuff. And
okay,
yeah,
and
they're both insane. Like Mike could sit down and draw you within 5 minutes. He can draw a picture, your face, and everything. He's crazy good.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if people want to check out these WWF buddies and other buddies, where can they see them, mate?
It's under Brothers Gaddor. So either you go to Brothers Gaddor on Facebook. I think it's Brothers_Gaddors on Instagram. Yeah. But check them out. Send them a message. You'll be surprised at how cool these things actually look in person. It surprises me. It's like, wow, these are pretty awesome. Yeah, he's up to his neck in them things. He's a busy guy.
I could definitely see Tyler have a wrestling buddy. I mean, one made of him. I mean, that would be amazing.
I don't know how much. I don't know how much money you'd get out of it. I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, I don't know if Walmart will even take that one. That'll be they'll be, hey, who's this guy?
And we have a Facebook user who says I've run out of room. He has the buddies all over the toy room. They are incredible.
That's from Thomas Tom Trotter, that one?
That wasn't from you, Brutus?
No. That's from Thomas Tom Trotter, a name many of us are familiar with. So, yeah. What do you mean? I'm not sending any messages.
What are you talking about? I thought. Sure. I know that. Those buddies. I mean, I've seen them on your Facebook page. I mean, they're amazing. I mean, they're some of probably some of the best that I've seen. I mean, there are other like WWE stuff and other stuff, but these are amazing. I just wanted to give compliments to them for a great product.
Yeah, Mike, their art is incredible. I've sat there and watched him draw people like we work, because we used to work together. He actually is doing the buddies full time now, so that's his job. So he gets to draw and he gets to do that stuff for a living. It's kind of cool. But yeah, I've sat there and watched him draw people, and it's like where he starts, and it's like, how did you do that? Like, what is that? So yeah, it's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I can't wait to chat to them about it. I'm wondering whether they piece the whole thing together themselves or whether they just print them out and send them somewhere else. Is it all done in-house? I should save these questions for them, of course, but
yeah, it's both. I think it's both. It depends on how many they make. You know, if they're mass produced, it depends. You know, but he's got his own little shop in town. He used to do it right out of his house, and then they rent out a little shop right in town, and they do all their work there. He goes there in the morning, and he gets done at 5 o'clock. So that's his job. You know, it's really cool that he actually gets to do that for a living. You know, he loves the art, loves to draw, and he's pretty much selling his artwork. I mean, you're selling a pillow, but it's pretty much his artwork. You know, someone's buying a painting from him, pretty much.
It's a dream.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to just bring up a slightly serious note, and it's from what Joe was saying. Zaash has said it before, and we've had a number of guys. Customizers are often put under a lot of pressure, and what we see posted online is the end product, but people don't see the process, that the hours and hours and hours that go into it. And sometimes, you know, we get some guys online who can be quite critical of people having a go. And we've got to remember the creative process has all these steps in it. And what you see at the end in one digital image doesn't reflect the hours of toil and training and everything that goes into the design. And we don't want our customizers to burn out either, because without them, our hobby's not moving forward. Our hobby would be static, just stuck collecting what existed. So sometimes we have to stop and think, oh yeah, that's maybe not the best one I've ever seen, but still it's pretty darn good. And I've got to recognize all the hours that went into the creative process for making that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'd love to personally add something small to that as well, Brutus. Like a lot of us customizers, when we're improving and we're getting to a certain level where we're doing nice looking customs, and we're dealing with people who are ordering 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sometimes customs, and you know, you start by someone saying, "Oh, buy this custom and this custom," and they're adding to it all the time. But that's fine. But you might make one that's absolutely out of this world, incredible, and then the other one might be nice but have a couple of imperfections here and there. But these, you've got to remember, these are all handmade. They're hand painted, they're hand done. We're doing our very best with it, and every so often there may be a chunk of putty under the foot or something like that to help it stand up. So you've got to expect not to look at it as in it's come out of the packet. You've got to sometimes look at it and go, you know, this is great, someone's made this. And if you get one that's super special, that's turned out better than anyone could expect, then you've gotten a bonus there. But with all of us, we're spending all the time in the world we can on this $120 to $150 figure. And at the end of the day, we're not going to keep going back to it over and over and over again. So we're spending years on this thing trying to nullify every parting line on it. You know, you're going to have certain parting lines and stuff like that. So you've got to expect it to be what it is at the end. I don't know, Joe, do you agree, disagree?
Yeah, I mean, we don't make money on them. Let's put it that way. You're not, you know, it's a hobby. You do it because you like to create it and you like to post it. You like everybody go, yeah, thumbs up, you know, that's awesome. And then you sell it for, like you said, $150, but you're not making anything up. By the time you factor in what you paid for the figure, what you put in for, you know, materials or whatever, if you made your own head, or if you bought your own head, or if you sculpted off an old LJN, and then the time. I mean, you really can't say, okay, well, it's time away from my family. It's time away from your family so you don't go insane. But you're doing it because you love it, right? And then it's one of those things where, yeah, you're selling it because you're like, you know what, I like this, but you like it much more than I do. So here it is for $150. And then if you flip it, I don't know if I could ever spend $150 on a custom. I mean, obviously I can make my own if I want to, but when I first started doing these, I was like, who wants to buy custom figures? Like they can break, or, you know, they're not original or whatever, but you're pretty much buying somebody else's artwork.
Yeah.
And there's a few guys out there who are like, I want some of this guy's stuff. I want some of this guy's stuff. I want some of that guy's stuff. And it's cool to be like, all right, I'm in that guy's collection. You know, he wants one of my figures, and I'm in that collection, and I
That's a
like that
great
figure,
point.
but
Yeah.
he likes it a lot more than I do because if he's willing to spend that money, he wants it more than I do. So, but yeah, you're not making anything on it. It's
And
more
do you actually have your own collection of customs? Like I've got tons of customs around me, all, as you see every week. But do you have your own little collection of stash that you've made and you've kept?
I had some, and I made a big trade with a buddy of mine that's not really out yet, but he's still getting some more from me in a few weeks. I got to finish touching them up, but I had a handful that I kept for myself, and I was like, I am not getting rid of these. And he made me an offer I couldn't refuse, I guess you'll say. So yeah, I made a trade with a buddy, and I'm sure he'll post it at some point, and I'll post it at some point. But yeah, there's some I won't get rid of. Like I said, my Andre, I won't get rid of that until I can mold it. I kept my Abdullah, but the butcher, I molded him. I kept my original Mr. Perfect. That's just primed up. I won't even paint him. I kept the original articulated figures I made.
Yeah.
I kept those.
Yeah.
I only sold a couple sets of them because I don't trust somebody not to copy them. Two, I don't want to send something out that I'm 100% sure it's not gonna fail. So I sent out 2 copies, knowing that I only got 2 copies out there. If something happens, they can send them back to me. I can fix it, make everything good. I didn't want to put 20 sets of these things out and then have 20 people call me and say, hey, look, these things are junk. I spent all this money on them, and now I got to fix them. So that was one of those things where I kept the originals, sold a couple sets, and then maybe down the road I'll make a couple more, but we'll see where that goes. But
Are you still taking commission orders, mate, or are you taking a break?
No, pretty much if I sell anything, it's something that I just make off. I'll make something. Like if I make figures when I make figures for the competition, if I get to a point where, someone hits me up and says, hey, I really want them. I do a lot of trading too. Like not even so much of money. Like Joseph Palmer, we trade all the time. He's always getting me those WWE Motu figures, and he'll be like, hey, do you need this guy? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I can't get that shit here. I need you to trade me. So, but yeah, so I do a lot of trading. I do a lot of trading with Trotta. I do a lot of trading with other guys. It's like, hey, if you want this, let's make a deal. Let's make a trade. And it just works so much better that way versus saying, all right, give me $100 for this figure or whatever. Mm-hmm. It just works a lot better. And again, like I said, when you do customs, they're cool. But at the end of the day, it's like something I made, and I know I can make it again. So it's like, well, if you really appreciate it that much and you're willing to trade me something that I can't get my hands on, absolutely. Let's do a trade.
Win-win.
Absolutely.
It's definitely a win-win. We have a Facebook user says he loves trading. That seems to be like you said, a win-win for everyone. You have a figure that someone else wants and they have one that you want. It's no money's transferred. It's just 2 figures, you're trading back and forth. It's definitely a win-win for everybody in that situation.
Yeah, plus the wife never sees that money.
Bonus.
So my son's 24, and so we're discussing this big huge trade I'm making, right? So he says to me, he's like, my wife has gone away with my youngest daughter, and they were gone visiting my brother-in-law in Florida. So I'm messaging him back and forth, and he's like, well, he goes, where's Marissa? I'm like, well, they're in Florida. He's like, definitely get that before she gets back. He goes, I was dying because he's the one pushing me. Yeah, he's 24 and he's got more action figures than I got. It's kind of funny.
It's definitely. How many figures do you have, Tyler?
I've got not as many as you all do. I've got a stunning Steve Austin and then an Andre Big Show, but it's not LJN. They're awesome, but I don't know if they're up to the quality that you fine gentlemen are. I'm just in awe. I'm amazed. I'm not worthy. I'll tell you.
Yeah, and it's Brutus. Oh, you were going. Oh, sorry. It's been another amazing show. This is one that I've been been wanting to do forever. I mean, I wanted to move Joe up, a couple more weeks, but we had some other big guests on. But this has been an amazing show tonight. And Joe, I mean, is there anything that you want to tell the audience listening and watching? Any parting words? I mean, if anybody wants to get into customizing or collecting, is there any words that you can, kind of push them out that door to get them started?
I think go for it. Like I told you, I made that Hogan and I was so pissed at it, and I took the Dremel to it and tore it up, and it came out halfway decent, and I was like, huh. But yeah, you got to try, you got to practice, you got to take the Dremel to the figures, you got to cut them off, you got to smooth them, you got to mess with different kinds of clays. I wanted to talk about the clays. I don't know if we got time.
Oh yeah, we have time. You want to talk about them?
Yeah. So when I first started doing this, I started out trying to use Aves epoxy clay, and I put it on my figures, and I was like, man, this shit's like sanding like a rock. I can't even sand it. I can't do anything with it. So I found the Milliput, and I know it's up and down. Everybody likes Milliput. Everybody likes epoxy. Everybody likes Aves, whatever. So I've been using the white Milliput forever. Mix it up, blend it, you smooth it with water, and then you can sand it. I'm the kind of guy that likes to sand it. I've told you earlier, I like to sand and smooth it. So as of late, a lot of people have been posting stuff about the epoxy, epoxy sculpt, the Aves. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try it again. So I got more of it in, and I still say Milliput is way better for doing joints because you can smooth it and sand it so much better. But I will say with the Aves epoxy, if you're doing hair or anything like that, where you're going to have the detail and you want to be able to cut it in with your putty knife or whatever, this is much better stuff for like hair. You're going to get more detail. It's not as messy or anything like that. But if you want to blend and you want to make the joints look like they were supposed to be there, I believe in the Milliput white personally. It just sands so much better and it dries better. But that's all I had to do. I went back and I tried the Aves again only because there were so many people that were posting that they loved it. And I will say it does work better for hair or maybe for wristbands or knee pads or something like that. But as far as if you're going to smooth it, you're gonna want to go with a softer epoxy like a Milliput.
I can follow up on that too, Joe. I think that's very well said what you just said. I use both Milliput and Aves epoxy, and I pretty much use for basically what you exactly just said. If I'm doing a joint or something like that, and it's a lot more softer, you use water and you can smooth it off a lot better. But definitely I use the Aves for things like if you're doing pads or stuff like that. I find it less messy. It tends to do the edges a lot cleaner than the Milliput because it is so soft that it is kind of difficult. You can do it, but it's kind of more difficult to do than the Aves. So I'm glad you said that because it just follows up what I've been thinking in my head. So I'm not the only one thinking that way.
And I was dead set that I was never going to try that stuff again. And then it was like I kept thinking, you guys keep using your Aves. I'm going to keep using my Milliput. And I finally said, you know what? I'm going to buy some. I'm going to try it because I haven't used it in a very long time. It is a pain in the ass to sand that stuff. It is. The Milliput just sands and smooths so much easier. But yeah, there's uses for both. I mean, I won't say people were wrong because they're using it. There is definitely uses for both.
Some great advice for all the customizers out there. Yeah,
this is definitely has been a teachable moment. I mean, for anybody that's, even if you're a veteran of customizing, this community, and I think Zaash, you'll agree with me, hopefully, and Joe, you can learn a lot of new things, even if you've been in the business and the game of customizing for years. There's always new techniques that people, come up with or tweak. Have there been any, do you agree that even if you're an old school customizer, there are a lot of things that you can learn from newer customizers that are coming into the game?
Oh, absolutely. So I like seeing what Kevin Swales puts out and Alan Carpenter. They're on both sides of it. They'll buy heads and then they'll go back and they'll use original LJNs. So some of the stuff they come up with is pretty cool to see. See how I look back on that and I'm like, man, I'm so deep into making my own heads and all that stuff. It's like, man, these guys are taking these original LJNs and they're just moving parts around and they're coming up with the stuff. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, I can really appreciate where those guys are coming from as far as what they're putting out as far as using the old original LJNs.
I mean, repurposing. I mean, people do that for things that aren't wrestling figures or any other type of figures. Just repurpose it. If you can use it, reuse it. I mean, that's what I would do if I did it. But Tyler, what is your final take on the program? Do you have anything that you're doing in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I'm going to be doing some writing, and CCW has an event coming up Saturday, May the 15th. So it's a great independent wrestling promotion. So if you're in the Nashville area, come check it out. There's going to be some great wrestlers there.
Well, that's folks, means we're going to be getting a new co-host. We'll be needing a new co-host because he's going to be getting beating up by the who was that gentleman you got slammed by?
I hate even saying his name after he did what he did, but Phoenicius, I'm still hurt. I just want to tell you, he doesn't want to mess with me. I'll tell you, I'll have backup next time. But I better be nice to him.
But I know you're doing some writing. Where's the website that people can catch that work?
It's called thebuzz.com, and actually you got to type in probably whatthebuzz.com, but the name of it's The Buzz, the premise. But they do sports, wrestling, everything. So it's just a cool site. We're just all passionate. We got a great team over there.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a great website. And Brutus, I know you're a busy man in Australia. I mean, you're just the finalizing of the Has book by the great Greenville. He, of course, put together this great custom Mania logo. And, man, that is a very, very pretty book. And when did you say that, I mean, is that the official, or is that the one that you're sending to get officially printed?
That's a print proof. So that's been looked at now. And I think I'll be sending the digital file for print tomorrow. Hopefully. Grenville, if you're watching, don't make any more fucking changes. We allowed to swear on here? No. Okay. That was a joke. I mean, that's a joke between us. No, we're just about done. He's done so much work. And it's going to be great to see this in print around about mid to late May. And the other one thing I should add, just listen to Zaash and Joe talk. I reckon a Figure Guys masterclass would be a great sort of episode, maybe at a time when a lot of customizer guys can get on and have two guys from different parts, or even three guys working through processes live. Might be something that could be fun with no pressure.
I mean, that actually, we've been talking about that. Zaash wanted to bring in another camera on his end and kind of show the process that he does. I mean that's a great idea. I mean, is there anything you're going to be doing this next couple of weeks? Zaash, I mean, any customs? Are you still doing those right now? I mean, are you just so behind, and since you're so popular?
I'm on top of my orders pretty much now. I've only got a few more, and then I'm taking a bit of a break from making them because I'm waiting on parts and all that to come through, so I can take a little break in after this week from doing my my commission work, which I've stopped. I've put a full stop to all my commissions at the moment because I've got to get back to enjoying what I do. I've got about 50 half-finished customs here that I'd love to just sink my teeth into. So that's what I want to get back into.
Yeah, and one more comment is from Kevin Swalls. He said, without Joseph Ice, head sculpts, and kick-ass customs, I would have been out of the game a long time ago. I mean, that's an amazing, great words. I mean, you've just inspired a lot of people, Joe. And I mean, it's amazing to have you on the program. And Zaash, next week, we're going from a man who does customs and who is normal to a man who is in professional wrestling and also does wrestling figures. Who is going to be on the program next week? The great Sin Bodhi is going to be on. I mean, that's the polar opposites of Joe going to Sin Bodhi. But it's going to be an amazing show, folks. But for the great Zaash Man, Tyler Peters, Brutus Valentine, Joe, I just wanted to thank you for being on the program, and we want to have you on next, and when we can get you back on, we wanted to get you on, and we can't wait to have the brothers on. That's going to be an amazing show. As always, I am David Fine. We will talk to you next week. And remember, folks, playing and talking and customizing your wrestling figures, it's not weird. It's just fun. We'll see you back here next week.